My name is Bill Hall, and I thought it'd be fun today to start a little series on different eras and genres of music. And I've been influenced by so many different players. I listen to everyone. I'm like the biggest fan of music, even more than a player, I'm a fan. And I thought it'd be fun today to start with some of the great hard rock players of the 1970s. When I was growing up as a young kid, when I was like 5 or 6, I remember I was really into AM radio, and I had a little AM radio I kept in my room, and I remember I looked forward to every Sunday night listening to Casey Kasem's American Top 40. And I would just lie there, and I just was a sucker for a great pop song, you know, from Kung Fu Fighting to The Night Chicago Died. All those songs had a huge impact on me. But the band that really set everything in motion for me was undeniable. I was riding home from school one day. I was in the 5th grade, and it was in the spring of 1976. And I remember a friend of mine had a magazine, and it had this article on this band called Kiss. Well, I grew up being a Universal, Monsters, American International, Monster Loving kid. All those films from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And we had local horror hosts here in town, and in the 70s they would show all these just amazing old movies, and I just couldn't get enough of it. Well, here was this band Kiss with this makeup on, and it just blew my mind. It was like, what do they sound like? I mean, they look incredible. And the album that really did it for me, when I heard it, I never looked back, was Kiss Alive. And Kiss Alive, I think, came out of September of 75, so I think I got it in early 76. And I just became obsessed with Kiss. They were like just all-encompassing. I would buy every magazine, like 16 Magazine and Teen Beat and Grooves and all these different magazines, and read every article I could on Kiss, and I was just blown away. And my favorite album to this day is still by Kiss, and one of my favorite rock albums of all time is this Kiss Alive album. My favorite player at the time was Gene Simmons, so I thought it'd be cool to play bass, but I didn't get a bass for Christmas in 1978. I actually got a guitar, and when I got that guitar, it changed everything. And that was huge for me. And I remember just sitting around and trying to make up songs and everything, and somehow I learned a power chord. So I just started writing all these songs with power chords. The second Kiss Alive album was huge for me also. And I remember when it first came out, going to the store and just looking at the cover and just amazed at the blood Gene Simmons was drooling. And when I took it home and put the album on, and I heard Shock Me, and I heard that live solo from Ace, I just could not believe the guitar could be played that fast. And I didn't know at the time he was actually tapping, but it's still an amazing solo. And I love the sound of this album. I love Ace's tone on both the live albums. Just a Marshall Plexi cranked to 10. I mean, how can you go wrong? So fast forward a couple years, and the next huge impact on me musically was when my next door neighbor sold me this album, Deep Purple Made in Japan, for $0.25, and the first Black Sabbath album, and Paranoid. So for 75 cents, I got Deep Purple Made in Japan, Black Sabbath's first 2 albums. I can't think of a better 75 cents I've ever spent in my whole life. I remember taking the album home, and the first album I put on was this Made in Japan. I didn't have the covers of the Black Sabbath albums. They were just the old Warner Brothers green label, kind of, so I think they were first pressing. But this one had a cover, so I thought it looked cool, so I took it home and put it on. And, you know, it started out with Highway Star. It just blew my mind. And then went into Child in Time. I was like, what is this? I mean, it was like unbelievable. I mean, I was listening to Kiss at the time. When I heard this, it was just overwhelming to hear Ritchie Blackmore play guitar, you know. Strange Kind of Woman, Lazy was amazing. And then the riff of all time. Might be a little out of tune there, but I had heard that before on the school bus, so it was amazing. I just played this album like crazy. I think my mom actually had the 45 for Smoking on Water ahead of time. But this album was just mind-blowing to me, and I became Deep Purple obsessed. The next album I got was Machine Head, this copy right here, and it just blew my mind. Machine Head is still one of my biggest, most influential albums of all time. I would sit down and try to learn all the Ritchie Blackmore stuff I could off this album. And the cool thing is this album kind of covers every groove. You got your up-tempo Highway Star, your swinging kind of almost swing feel of Lazy, your mid-tempo stuff of Maybe I'm Leo. You got the really cool kind of triplet feel of Pictures of Home. I mean, the killer straight-ahead hard rock of Space Truckin'. It's unbelievable, every kind of groove you can imagine. And the rhythm section, Roger Glover and Ian Pace just blew my mind, as well as Ian Gillan singing. John Lord's keyboard playing. I mean, I can't say enough about Deep Purple. I became Deep Purple obsessed, and even to this day, I'm still Deep Purple obsessed. Anything with Ritchie Blackmore, Deep Purple, Rainbow, I would just rush out and buy. I just grabbed a couple of CDs out of my collection. Some of my favorite albums by them is Live at the Cal Jam. I just love his playing on this. I love the lineup. David Coverdale's vocals are incredible. You know, it has what I consider to be by far the best Mistreated. I love Ronnie James Dio's version, but this version is just killer. And Ritchie starts out with this amazing kind of unaccompanied guitar thing. This really fast tremolo picking, and then he holds the notes, and you can just hear it echoing across everything. It's just amazing. Another album I love by Deep Purple is Made in Europe. This is one of my favorite Ritchie albums also. Just amazing guitar playing on it. You got Burn, another killer version of Mistreated. Lady Double Diller's just a smoking tune with a great guitar playing. You Fool No One's just a really long jam. And then you got the amazing Stormbringer. You can't go wrong with this one. It's right up there with Made in Japan. Just a killer album and a huge influence on me for sure. An album that kind of flies under a lot of people's radar that I really think is amazing is this one, Who Do You Think We Are? I love Rat Bat Blue. Place in Line was a huge influence on me. That guitar solo is some of Ritchie's best soloing ever. It's one of my favorite solos of all time. I really love this 1998 reissue of Machine Head. Roger Glover went in and remixed some of the tracks and used different solos. I guess that led to the falling out between him and Ritchie, was what Roger said, but it was worth it because I love it. I love to hear all the outtakes from Ritchie, everything. So hopefully they can become friends again, but I just love this one. So it didn't take me long to get some Rainbow stuff. My brother actually had this album, Rainbow Rising, and just the album cover alone blew my mind. And when I put it on, it took me to another world. I couldn't believe how amazing Ronnie James Dio was. The three albums that Ronnie did with Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, Rainbow Rising, and Long Live Rock and Roll, some of my favorite hard rock music ever and some of my favorite guitar playing. The songs are stellar. I mean, it's just perfection, hard rock perfection, if you ask me. I can't get enough Rainbow and Ritchie. So at the same time, I was just totally obsessed with Deep Purple. I was also totally into Black Sabbath. I can't tell you what a huge influence Black Sabbath has been on me. I was just amazed with Tony Iommi's guitar tone and those riffs, and I loved his solos too. Tony's solos totally get overlooked. I think he played some brilliant solos. I just love that blues feel he has, and he has a tremendous feel. And like Deep Purple, you can tell that they came out of that blues rock almost swing thing. I mean, Ian Pace swings, and so does Bill Ward. The rhythm sections in both bands are incredible. And the first two Black Sabbath albums were really the biggest ones for me. I mean, the first album is probably my favorite one by them. I just love it. You can hear the swing and blues influence big time on that album in songs like Wicked World and The Wizard and stuff like that. And I'm actually going to do a video on Black Sabbath and their swing element in the future. But Tony Iommi was huge for me. The first, really all the Black Sabbath albums with Ozzy were just mind-blowing. And I love the Ronnie stuff too. I can't say enough about Black Sabbath. One of my top 5 bands of all time. I think of the hard rock movement for the 70s, the 70 hard rock giants, is definitely Black Sabbath and Deep Purple by far. And I love Zeppelin too, but they didn't have the impact on me personally as Deep Purple and Black Sabbath did. One album I really got into was the Black Sabbath Live at Last album. And it's really cool because they do a lot of jamming on it. And that was like really huge for me. And they reissued it as this Past Live CD with some bonus tracks, another disc of different live recordings. And if you haven't heard Live at Last, I really recommend it. It's just almost like a bootleg, but it's just amazing. And the guitar playing is so cool. And they do some killer swing stuff on there. They do some songs that are really not released. Just amazing stuff. I can't say enough. Past Lives, Black Sabbath. I went and bought a bunch of old Cream albums and was just blown away. And I spent a lot of time listening to Cream and really working out those Eric Clapton solos also. Just amazing stuff. The next band that I fell in love with after Black Sabbath, Kiss, and Deep Purple was AC/DC. I'll never forget when a friend of mine came over to my house and played me Highway to Hell. I was just blown away. I was a hard rock loving kid, and AC/DC gave me exactly what I needed at the time. So I went and got all the AC/DC albums, and my favorite's Power Rage by them. I just love Power Rage. I love the first High Voltage album too, and some of my favorite guitar playing is on that. They released some of the tracks as Jailbreak 74, but the Australian High Voltage I think is a great blues rock, hard rock album, and I love their tones on it a lot. So AC/DC was huge for me. They're just an amazing band even to this day. Another player that had a huge impact on me, like so many others, was Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin. They're just, what can you say about Led Zeppelin? Everyone knows they're an amazing band. I love the Physical Graffiti album. This is the first Led Zeppelin album I ever got. Just incredible stuff. That opening tone that he uses on 10 Years Gone is just, it's perfection. I can't say enough about that tone. The bass comes in. I love the songs Down by the Seaside. Kashmir is mind-blowing. That was the first song that I really heard off this album. The reason I got the album was Kashmir. And Kashmir was really an important song for many. I know that they asked Chris Cornell. I saw Chris Cornell being interviewed one day, and they asked him, what song by another artist do you wish you had written? And he said Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. So that's just a testament to the impact that Led Zeppelin had on all these other amazing artists. Can't say enough. Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin. Growing up in northeastern Ohio, if you were a hard rock fan in the 1970s and 80s, you were a Rush fan. And I can't say enough about Rush. I just love Alex Lifeson's guitar playing and arrangements. And Rush were cool. A lot of the music I listened to was very minor key. I love minor keys. Rush could rock out in the major keys, and that was really important for me. Those early Rush albums just had a huge influence on me, and the guitar playing is just unbelievable. This album, All the World's a Stage, is a must-have if you're a hard rock fan. I still listen to this album like crazy. I mean, it's got, every song on here is amazing. You got Bastille Day, Anthem, Fly By Night, In the Mood, Something for Nothing, The Amazing Lakeside Park off Caress of Steel, the whole 2112 for the most part performed, By Tour and Snow Dog, another great progressive song, In the End, just a killer rock song. You got Working Man kind of combined with Finding My Way and What You're Doing. I mean, you can't go wrong. So Rush was definitely huge for me, and I still love the band even to this day. Next band I really got into was Scorpions. And Tokyo Tapes with Uli Jon Roth was just absolutely mind-blowing for me. Uli's one of the greatest guitar players that has ever lived. His phrasing is absolutely beautiful. His note choice is always perfect. There's not a misplaced note or an extra note. His vibrato, intonation, and bending is just spot on. I mean, I can't say enough about Uli Jon Roth. And this album in particular really just encompassed everything I wanted to be as a player when I heard it. And I loved Ritchie Blackmore, and I loved the whole European sound. I love that kind of little bit of classical music tinged in with the blues. And this had it all over. I mean, I can't say enough about this album. I actually love all the albums with Uli that he did with the Scorpions. Fly to the Rainbow is amazing, In Trance, Virgin Killer. My favorite's Taken by Force. I love that album. I mean, it's just incredible. Born to Touch Your Feelings, I think, is one of the greatest songs ever written. I just get goosebumps when I listen to it. So Scorpions were definitely huge for me. I actually love all the stuff that Scorpions did. I love the period of the band after Uli left. I love the album they did with Michael Schenker, the Love Drive album. I think that it was really groundbreaking. You can hear the tone really changed. And the tone in this album is really kind of a precursor to what was to come in the 80s. This album was really a transitional album for the Scorpions, I believe. Just a really great, amazing album. And I actually went back and got some of the earlier albums with the Scorpions, and I got this one, the Lonesome Crow album. And this has some just amazing guitar playing from a 16-year-old Michael Schenker. I think he was 15 or 16 when he recorded this. And the songs are kind of psychedelic a little bit. It kind of reminds me of like Deep Purple Mark I a little bit. Kind of psychedelic, but just the guitar playing is amazing. And he was a huge Lesie West fan. And you can hear that. Jimmy Page, Lesie West, I think there was some Ritchie in there. His tone on this album is killer. And it actually kind of reminds me of Alex Lifeson's tone on the first Rush album. Just an amazing record to listen to and a great document of a young Michael Schenker for sure. After getting into the Scorpions Love Drive album and just being amazed with Michael Schenker's playing, I went back and got all the UFO stuff. And UFO is right up there as one of my favorite bands of all time. The songwriting is incredible. The chemistry between the band members is unbelievable. And the guitar playing of Michael Schenker is some of the greatest guitar playing ever of any genre. Michael Schenker has the phrasing, the tone, the feel. I mean, he's liquid. When he plays, he's so fluid, it's just liquid-like. And that's something I always strive for. And he has the touch. I'm going to do a video on the guitars that I think have the greatest touch. And that touch is so important, that intonation and that swing and hitting the notes a certain way to make the guitar kind of be a voice. And Michael has it all. And my favorite studio album by them is the first one he did with them, Phenomenon. But I also really love this Obsession album. And the guitar tone on this is one of the greatest tones of all time. I think I heard a story where Marshall actually used the tone on this album as a reference point for their 800 series. So it makes sense because that's what Michael uses now. But just an amazing album. And what else can you say about the live album that UFO did, Strangers in the Night? It's one of the most incredible live albums ever. It's just perfection from beginning to end. The tone, the performances, just unbelievable. And the songs are just so good. I mean, UFO wrote amazing songs. So around this time, I went back and rediscovered Jimi Hendrix music. And Hendrix just had a huge impact on me. The impression that Jimi Hendrix made on my guitar playing was huge. From the way he shaped the notes, his phrasing, his chord, the way he would do all these really cool chord inversions and with a clean tone on a Strat with the neck pickup. All that was huge for me. Jimmy was one of the great innovators. What can you say about Hendrix? Without him, I wouldn't be sitting here, and none of us would be playing guitar like we do now, I'm sure. And even after all these years, Jimi Hendrix still sounds fresh and just mind-blowing today as it did way back then. Can't say enough about Hendrix. Another player that I really got into was Jeff Beck, and Jeff Beck's one of the all-time greats for sure. And the cool thing about Beck is he kept evolving. He always really maintained this like drive to create new things and change his style, which I really find fascinating and real inspiring to me as a player. And the first time I really got into by Jeff Beck was the Truth album. It sounded like a Les Paul through a Marshall. You can't go wrong with that. And then by the time he put out Wired and Blow by Blow, I mean, I was hooked. I just love Jeff Beck's playing. His phrasing, his bending, his note choice. The guy's just a master of phrasing. When you say Jeff Beck's name, it's synonymous with just incredible phrasing. I can't say enough about Jeff Beck, just a true master and total inspiration to me as a player. Another band from the late 60s and 70s that was huge for me was Free. Paul Kossoff's just amazing. Again, that Marshall with a humbucker, that is the sound for me, and I just can't say enough about the vocals on this too. Paul Rogers singing is unbelievable. He doesn't even sound like the same singer to me as he did later. He actually became more polished as he went on, but I love the early Paul Rogers stuff he did with Free the best. Just amazing songwriting, and Paul Kossoff's just amazing. Another great album from the 70s was the Y&T album. It was Yesterday and Today with Dave Meniketti on vocals, but Dave Meniketti's guitar playing is so underrated. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. I love the guitar playing this album. And the drumming of Leonard Hayes is just mind-blowing too. And with single bass doing that stuff, I believe it's just incredible. If you haven't heard this album, Yesterday and Today, with Dave Meniketti, I really recommend getting it if you're a fan of the 70s hard rock guitar playing, or bands in general. Great songs, and man, that rhythm section. Another one from the 1970s that blew my mind was Johnny Winter and with Rick Derringer on guitar. Johnny and Rick together is just an amazing thing. I can't say enough about this album. It's got a really cool version of Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo on it. It's got some other great songs like Am I Here, Look Up, Prodigal Son, On the Limb, Let the Music Play, Guess I'll Go Away. Just all amazing songs. And Johnny Winter is just so good. I mean, his phrasing was unbelievable. And that's what I'm all about anymore, is just phrasing. I mean, I love the shred. I'm all about shred. My channel is very shred oriented. But, you know, you can't have the shred without the phrasing. You got to have the phrasing. If you don't have the phrasing, you can't have the shred. No, but I love Johnny Winter. Just amazing stuff. Just put this on and just I'm transported back to this period. I'm sure he was blowing guitar players' minds. I mean, he was so good. Every note perfect. His vibrato, his bending. Just some of the best blues hard rock playing you'll ever hear. Another guitar player that I think's incredible and just totally underrated is Rory Gallagher. And this first Rory Gallagher album is just amazing, full of amazing guitar playing, just some brilliant hard rock blues playing. You got songs like Laundromat, Just a Smile, Wave Myself Goodbye, For the Last Time. Just great. And if you haven't heard Roy's playing, I really recommend going out and get this because you will not be disappointed. It's just amazing. Growing up around Ohio, if you talked about great guitar players, you couldn't get very far without someone who mentioned Phil Keaggy. Phil Keaggy was from Kent, around the Kent area, I believe, here in Ohio, northeastern Ohio, where I'm from. And his guitar playing is as good as it gets. Just some amazing guitar playing. This is a glass harp kind of anthology from 1970 to 2003, different live performances. But just amazing stuff. If you haven't heard Phil play, I really recommend you going out and get some glass harp. The guy was definitely ahead of his time. Beautiful tone, just great trio, hard rock from the 70s with just amazing guitar playing. Very melodic. He had a really kind of soulful, kind of almost Paul McCartney voice. But yeah, his guitar playing was just brilliant. And in a way, I can almost hear like the Eric Johnson trio kind of thing going on with him in terms of the way it's presented. It kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff that Eric did with his trio. His playing is a lot different. He actually would get into some like legato playing, kind of Holsworthy playing in the 80s that was really great too. But this 70s stuff's just some great kind of bluesy rock, just amazing stuff. Phil Keaggy. Another player that I really love is Lesie West, who recently passed away. Lesie had the tone, the phrasing, the bending. Mountain was just an incredible band. This is Twin Peaks here. It's one of my favorite Mountain albums. I love the live one they did also. And actually the first Mountain album is just brilliant. Mountain with Lesie West, I think it was called. I love the playing on that also. But Lesie was definitely an influence on a lot of the players that I'm talking about today. And really is timeless. Another guy that I think is just a killer bluesy hard rock player, even though he's playing fusion, was Bill Connors. Bill Connors definitely had the Clapton vibe going on. I know he was a huge influence on Eric Johnson. Eric Johnson, you know, said he had a huge impact on his playing. Bill Connors did. This Return to Forever album, Hymn of the Seven Galaxies, is one of my favorite albums by them. And I'm a Al Di Meola freak. I love Al Di Meola. I'm going to be talking about him when I talk about the fusion players from the 70s. But I put Bill in with the hard rock blues players because I think he kind of has that vibe for sure. Another album that Bill played on that I think is just brilliant is the first Stanley Clarke album. Just amazing. If you haven't heard either one of these and you're not familiar with Bill Connors, I really recommend getting some of Bill's playing. And in the 80s, Bill did 3 killer legato-based albums that are very Holsworth-like, that are some of my favorite albums to this day also. Bill's just an amazing player and totally underrated. I love all the players I've been talking about today. They all had a huge impact on me, and there's a lot of guys that I left out that I'll be covering. I'm going to do the Holsworths and all of them, you know, Di Meolas and McLaughlins and the, like Tommy Boland's another one. But none of them had the impact. I mean, Ritchie was huge, and he's still one of my favorite players of all time. But I wasn't really quite prepared for what I was about to hear when I heard this. The first Van Halen album, to me, is just the greatest hard rock debut of all time, and the greatest guitar debut of all time, and just pure perfection, hard rock perfection. Eddie recently passed away, and it's just really devastating to think that I'll never hear any new Van Halen music. But what can I say? This album and the six-pack, you know, you got the Van Halen 1, Van Halen 2, Women and Children First, Fair Warning, Diver Down in 1984. Just hard rock perfection, total innovation, the most amazing tone ever. I mean, Eddie Van Halen had it all. His touch, he had the touch, the phrasing. Van Halen was definitely the man, and definitely my biggest guitar influence of all time, I would say. I don't really sound like Eddie now when I'm soloing and doing my thing, but it's all in there. It's in my guitar DNA. That rhythmic feel Eddie had, and the touch, and the notes. I mean, I would just spend hours learning those solos note for note, and it's all in there. And that would set me up for the 1980s when I heard Randy Rhoads and Yngwie and all those players that I cover on my channel extensively, the shred era. But I love the 70s players just as much. I love all great guitar playing, no matter the genre. I listen to a lot of different styles of music, from fusion to world music, all sorts of stuff, classical. Just a huge fan in general. But it's just a blast talking about this stuff and showing you guys stuff, and I'm really having fun. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm going to cover a lot more genres, a lot more players, do a lot more lessons, do a lot more of my shred guitar in the 80s. So if you like this, please like and subscribe and hang out with me. I really appreciate it. And to all of you that have liked and subscribed to my channel, thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I hope you had fun putting up with me today, going through all these albums. I really enjoyed this. So thanks a lot, and have fun picking.